It's time to talk about one of the more hot button topics when it comes to the game hunting and video game collecting sphere. Resellers. Let's talk about it from an objective point of view on today's episode of Bargain Game Hunter 101. So, first of all, for those who have never watched this series or have never been to this channel, hello, welcome. I have a feeling there might be a decent amount of new viewers on this particular video, so I wanted to welcome you myself to the channel. Now, this series is designed to be kind of a somewhat educational tips and tricks / best practices type thing when it comes to people who are trying to get into the video game hunting / video game collecting game. Because there's a whole lot of things that a lot of people don't really know when it comes to video game hunting, video game collecting, that kind of thing. And I wanted to kind of share my knowledge as someone who's been collecting for a while now, as well as some tips and tricks that I've picked up on over the years. This episode is going to be a little different, just because in addition to sharing some, advice and tips and tricks, we're also just going to be having a formal discussion, and we're going to be trying to do it from a objective point of view. When you hear the word reseller, especially when it comes to video game collecting or almost any collecting medium, a lot of people cringe a little bit just because I feel the word reseller kind of has a stigma about it. And I don't think it's necessarily fair, but I also don't think it's completely unjustified. So I figured the best way to kind of clear the air when it comes to reselling is to have a discussion with not just myself, but a few guests who are well versed in said industry. But we'll get to that in a second. So the first things first. The very basics. What is reselling? Very simple, and I'm sure a lot of you are asking me, why are you asking such a simple question? Just want to get it out there. Reselling, of course, is when you go to a store or a yard sale, a flea market, somewhere where you can purchase goods. You purchase an item, usually for a fairly low price, and then you turn around and you sell that item to another buyer online or in person for significantly more money than you paid for it. The idea behind it is you were able to catch a deal and were able to sell that item for maybe the market price or maybe a little bit higher because it's a more valuable item. But it's a way for people to make additional money one way or another. And in any collectible medium, reselling is a big thing. Because with things like video games, trading cards, memorabilia, vinyl, you name it, there's always somebody who's trying to scoop up the cheap stuff and then resell it for way more than it's worth. It's up to your own judgment as to whether you think that's moral or amoral. Personally, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a very simple thing. If you're just trying to make a little extra money, whether it's to help support your family or, to pay for something you've been needing, or maybe even to grow your own personal collection. There are a lot of reasons why someone would resell, but it still has that little bit of a stigma, mostly because of people who negatively portray resellers. And there are quite a few of those, especially on YouTube. So, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to collecting any kind of big collectible industry, whether it's video games, sports memorabilia, cards are a big one right now. I'm filming this in April of 2025, and Pokemon cards are insanely difficult to find right now. Pretty much you can't unless you just happen to get lucky or are really good at waiting for restocks. So reselling is kind of a big thing because people know they can go to a store, buy a bunch of Pokemon cards, and then flip them online for significantly more money than they're worth, or significantly more money than what people would be paying for it. And anytime there's an opportunity to make additional money, people are going to take it. That's just the way of life. it's going to happen, especially if they can do it fairly easily. However, that's not to say that resellers aren't offering a positive service to a community. And I say that because not all of us are going to be as fortunate as others when it comes to finding video games, etc. in the wild. You know, I live in an area where we don't really see a lot of garage sales, a lot of flea markets, that kind of thing. I have pawn shops that I go to, and I actually have to travel a decent distance now to get to those pawn shops. But not everybody's that lucky. Sometimes people live in a small town where they want to collect video games, but they don't really have an easy avenue to do so. Well, sometimes the best way to do that is to go online and purchase from a reseller or eBay, etc. You know, sometimes you just want to play a specific game from your childhood or a game that you heard a lot of good things about, but just can't find in a store. That's where video game resellers come in. A lot of times they're able to offer you things that might be tricky for you to find in public. That's just how it is. So even though people might think, oh, they're just trying to make profit and that's it, there are some positive elements when it comes to reselling, because it's a way for people who aren't able to necessarily find these types of products out in their area to be able to do so. So there's definitely some positives, and of course there's definitely some negatives when it comes to the reselling game. And a lot of that boils down to good reseller behavior and bad reseller behavior. Not reselling itself, it's how a person is perceived in how they do their reselling business or how they run their reselling business. So I have done some reselling in the past. If you have been watching this channel for a little bit, or even if you haven't, you might want to watch one of the episodes I did a while ago. I found a copy of Pokemon Heart Gold at a pawn shop. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was not a whole lot of money. I ended up selling it online. Made about, I think it was like $70 or $80 profit. I don't resell professionally. That's just something I did because it was out in the wild and I was able to make a quick buck. Now, I also found a copy of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 at a pawn shop that I bought for a very low price. Flipped that online, made some easy money there too. What I did was I used that money to go back into my collection or pay my bills, which is what a lot of people are doing this reselling for. Now, there are some full-time resellers where that is their job, and there's nothing wrong with that if they're doing things in a moral way. So I wanted to not just share my experience with the little bit of reselling that I've done, because I'm not a professional reseller. I don't resell often. In fact, I've kind of stopped doing it at this point because it's a lot of work and I have a full-time job and a lot of things that I'm responsible for, so it's not really for me. But I wanted to share the opinions of a couple fellow content creators who resell a bit more than I do. So first, let me introduce you to Easy Gamer.
Resellers, bad resellers. I don't know what category I would fall under, but I know the difference. I guess you can say that, you know, I live by certain rules. Like, I'm not going to lowball a child. I'm not going to lowball an old lady. That's just something I don't do. I feel like, you know, if you're honest with people and you can achieve your price point. You know, you can actually sit down with a person and say, hey, you know what, this is how much this is worth. This is what I'm willing to pay. And if that person accepts that offer, they accept it. If they don't, they don't. But for example, if someone lowballs themselves and say, hey, I want $3 a game, and they're not a kid or like an old lady, then obviously I'm going to take that deal. That's just what I do. I'm not rich. You may see this huge video game collection behind me, but it's taken years to obtain it. And it's like a safety net, I guess. If I have to get rid of it, I can, you know. Another thing I want to mention too is having the ability to do returns. So if someone is not satisfied with their purchase, if it's not working and I don't test something properly, they have the opportunity to come back to my home and return the item. Another thing I want to point out is I have all in-home testing. I have cameras, I have guns, whatever you want to protect yourself, because I know it's kind of a risky world out there. But I'd rather have people come to my home, test, feel comfortable when they're here, as well as know that I'm actually a collector and not just a reseller, because they see everything that I have, and it kind of intrigues them a little bit to be more comfortable making the purchase. I'm not sure how other people do it. I know there's meetups. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is in Gang Related, the movie with Tupac and Tim Roth. They're drug addicts, and they're trying to get their money to get their score. And one thing Tim Roth is doing is he's putting bricks in boxes of cameras and selling them. You know, I use that in one of my videos, but it's just funny because those kind of things can happen, especially if you're doing a meetup far away. And yeah, I mean, there's different sources too, or different areas to sell, like Mercari or eBay and stuff. So that's different, you know, that's a different point of view. But I'm talking from like personal sales. I'd rather have someone come to my home, test the item, make sure they're satisfied, maybe even give them a discount for even coming over because of gas or whatever, take $5-10 off, and just make the person happy, and then give them the safety net of knowing that they can come back and return the item if they need to. I would like to thank Big C for letting me be a part of this video, and awesome.
So next, I want to introduce you to another game hunting content creator like myself and like Easy Gamers. Actually, he's collaborated with Easy Gamers quite a few times. This is RJC Media.
Well, the thing is about reselling, and honestly, reselling is not even my favorite part of all this. It's really the hunting, the game hunting aspect. You know, finding these dirty places, going to these pawn shops, swap meets, all that. The actual hunting process is the most fun part to me. But the main reason it works for me so far is that I keep it honest. I only buy things that people really want to sell. I'm usually buying things that most people just pass by because they don't think there's any value to it. And I'm able to sell things that other people don't want, and I'm able to do whatever I want with that money in return. And at the end of the day, people are asking a certain dollar for things, and I'm willing to pay that dollar. And so the way I see it, as long as one party's happy to sell and I'm happy to buy, what really happens after the fact, I don't think really matters that much. The problem starts to arise, especially with resellers, the bad ones, quote unquote, is when they're just trying to pull a fast one on people, when they're lying to them, when they're, just being dishonest with what they're buying. I don't know, stuff like sticker swapping, or just straight up stealing, or like an example of like a bad reselling practice that I see a lot is like video game stores, specifically retro game stores. They'll be selling games like Destiny or Mag, or just any sort of online only games that you can't play anymore. It's like, you're really trying to trick like some mom or some kid into buying a $3, $5 copy of Destiny that's not gonna work? Like what are you doing? Is getting that $5 really worth that kid thinking like, wow, what a scumbag for the rest of his life? Like, I don't know. There's lots of little things like that, but I'd say just the main thing is just keeping it honest and transparent with people is usually the best way to go. Me and Easy Gamer, we'll straight up tell people like, hey, we buy, sell, and trade. We'll resell stuff. This is what we do, and we can sit with you and price chart things out, tell you exactly what things are worth, and we can make you an offer. And most of the time when you're honest with people like that, they tend to give you deals. When you're being shady, when you're doing weird stuff to try and pull a fast one on people, that's when people really start to back off, and that's really not what I'm into. Honestly speaking, I really don't have much of an opinion on like resellers or reselling as a practice. I kind of just do this because it's fun, and when it stops being fun, I won't do it anymore. The best part of all this is all my resale stuff, but I originally started as just a collector. Like, this is my personal collection, and pretty much everything here I got because of hunting and reselling. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have stuff like the Lunar Complete games or any of this crap. I would have had to pay out of pocket for all this, and that's just not the avenue I wanted to go. I wanted to get all this for free, and reselling allowed me to do that. So yeah, that's about all I have to say.
And last, but certainly not least, we have the yard sale hunting lucha himself, Eldab Stroyero, with his thoughts on good and bad reselling practices.
What is up, friends? LDabstroyero here, and I'm checking in from the game room because Big C asked me to share some of the pearls of wisdom that I've picked up out on the road during my time game hunting for my series Thrifting Throwdown. So obviously, I consider myself to be a retro game hunter first and foremost, but for a little while now, I have been dabbling in the dark art of reselling video games. So based on my time as a buyer, based on my time as a seller, I feel like I've got a few thoughts I can share on the subject. And straight away for me, when I think about one of the aspects of reselling that gets overlooked the most, it's gotta be the customer service that's involved. And I know that may sound quaint, but honestly, think about it like this. When you're buying a game, do you want a game that's all dirty and gross, or do you want a game that's been cleaned up? Do you want a game that you don't know if it's going to work when you play it? Or do you want a game that's been tested and you have confidence that it's going to play correctly? When a seller is able to answer questions about a game's condition and confirm it's been tested and working, that gives that little extra peace of mind to me as a buyer that makes me that much more likely to make the sale. I always contrast that experience with the reseller who just finds a bunch of games and is selling them on Marketplace without any care for the condition, no care for how dirty they are, and honestly, that makes such a big difference in the buying experience. And similarly, maybe this is just kind of a pet peeve of mine as an introvert, but when I'm browsing for something to buy, I want to see a clearly marked price somewhere on that item. Please, for the love of Princess Peach, don't make me ask for prices on every single item, only to watch you check those same prices on eBay in front of me. As a buyer, it's insulting, and as a seller, it's kind of lazy, let's be honest. So like I said, it may sound quaint, but to me, the difference between someone who resells and someone who gets labeled with that dreaded black mark of being a reseller is just that little extra effort of caring about the items and the people who also care about those items. So there you go. Those are my initial thoughts on reselling. I'd share plenty more, but animation is expensive and Big C ain't paying me for this gig. So that's all for now. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you out at the yard sales.
So as you can see, based on everything that we've all discussed, there's some good ways to resell, there's some bad ways to resell. All of it is dependent on how a reseller portrays themselves. If they're being shady, sticker swapping, trying to hide things, intentionally lowballing people who might not know better, that's one thing. And that should be shamed for that. Another channel which I have not collaborated yet with is Heckin' Steve. That's kind of what he does, is he shames resellers for doing kind of bad things. I think he goes a little bit over the top on some respects, but I get where he's coming from. So there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that do what we like to call bad reseller behavior, where they're intentionally lowballing people who don't know better. They try to take advantage of situations rather than being honest. And I feel it's completely different than what Easy Gamers and RJC mentioned, which is being honorable when it comes to it. If you're offering someone what they asked for, that's honorable. That's what they want for this item. Now, granted, that item is probably worth more than what they're asking for, but a lot of times people know that. And even if they don't, if they just need a few bucks, why do anything different? It's completely understandable. As long as everybody is getting exactly what they wanted, rather than someone being taken advantage of to their face intentionally, I feel that's completely fine. So, the moral of the story here is resellers are not a bad thing. And in many respects, they actually serve a purpose that a lot of people don't think about, which is offering items that people won't necessarily be able to find out in the wild to those who maybe can't go out in the wild or maybe don't have retro game stores or even GameStop nearby them. And I think that is a valuable thing. I also think that that stigma about resellers is, I'd say for the most part, unfounded. Now granted, there are some bad resellers who do some bad things, and I think those people should be shamed online, especially if they post it online. But when you have somebody who's trying to, pay the bills for their family, collect games, try to help grow their personal collections, or just doing it for the thrill of the hunt, with the money being kind of an extra bonus, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I hope this video helped kind of give you a different look at the world of reselling. It's not a bad thing when done correctly, is kind of the moral of the story here. If you are interested in learning more about reselling and want to see some more strategic tips on it, as well as just game hunting in general, I would definitely watch all 3 of my collaborators' channels. They're not necessarily focused on the reselling aspect, but that is something that they do. So if you enjoy game hunting in general, which if you watch my channel, I would assume you probably do, then please check out and subscribe to Easy Gamers, RJC Media, and LDabstroyero. They're all awesome guys. I've been enjoying watching all of their content for quite some time now, and it's quite an honor to be able to collaborate with them on this video. In case you couldn't tell, I'm very excited because this is the first collaboration video I have ever done with any other content creators. I just don't have many in my area. So shout out to them, great people. Hopefully we'll collaborate again on some other video or something else in the future, but please subscribe to them, show them love, tell them Big C sent ya, and check out some more awesome game hunting content. And I hope that all of us sharing our insights really help out when it comes to having the right perspective on reselling in the gaming industry. So there you go. Anyway, that is going to do it for this episode of Bargain Game Hunting 101. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell. That way you know when new videos drop. Again, shout out to all 3 of my collaborators, Easy Gamers, RJC Media, and LDabstroyero. Please show them some love by hitting their subscribe buttons, checking out their content, and yeah, let them know that you came from Big C and he recommended you check them out. And I'll be seeing you on the next episode of Bargain Game Hunting 101. Bye-bye.